to the AfterBuzz. Got a little frog in my throat there for you folks. How we doing? Welcome to Wednesday. Welcome to the AfterBuzz, and we got a few different topics that we will be discussing on today's show, including 13 Reasons Why Season 2. I wrapped it up. I'll give some thoughts on that. So obviously it should go without having to say there will be spoilers. So if you have not seen 13 Reasons Why Season 2 or even Season 1 and you don't want to know what happens, by all means, turn it off now. Or you can wait a little bit and I'll let you know when we're going to get into that. We're also going to talk about the World Cup a little bit. We're going to talk about a whiskey shortage. Not really much to say about it other than the fact that what the hell, this upsets me. And then also, if we have time, I did put it in the description really quick, is that we're going to talk about, we'll talk about worst jobs, because I've certainly had my fair share of some pretty crappy jobs. And by all means, I'm going to kind of go down that path. Because there's certain things that, you know, they're just crappy jobs that I've had before I got into radio. There's even been crappy radio jobs that I've had before. So anyway, let's get right into this AfterBuzz. First things first, let's plug the D&D tonight. It's Legends of Cascadia. It's the world that we have created that's based in El Paso and beyond. It's right now we're still in El Paso. It's only going to be the second episode tonight. And then it's going to expand. We'll probably end up in Las Cruces, maybe down in Juarez, if we're allowed, because remember, in our world, there is a border wall, except it's the country to the south that's preventing the people from the north from getting over. Maybe we'll end up in Ruidoso or something like that, or like Cloudcroft, and then over through West Texas, like Abilene, San Angelo, those kind of areas. And what we do is we incorporate things from those areas into this world that we've created. It's kind of a post-apocalyptic El Paso, West Texas area. Because remember, in the first episode, we ended up in an old, worn-down Chuck E. Cheese. And we ended up fighting, crap, I totally spaced on the guy's name. But we ended up fighting this guy who had stolen Buzz's teeth. Buzz, by the way, is an ogre in this world. So, got that coming up tonight. It's going to be at 6 o'clock Central, 5 o'clock Mountain Time on our YouTube channel. So if you're already here, make sure you subscribe so you get that notification for when we go live with that this evening. Now let's get into 13 Reasons Why. I watched season 1 when it first came out. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought it was a great show. I think that the people who make the claims that this show glamorizes suicide are off a little bit in their analysis of what's going on with the show. I can see where they're coming from, but I don't see it as completely portraying it in the sense that, oh, it's making Hannah Baker look like this hero who was a victim who, you know, is getting back at these people, and the way to get back at these people, or the way out for her, was to commit suicide. I didn't see it that way. What I saw was she had done this horrible act that she felt was the only way out, but it's dealing with the repercussions for the people that are still around and the things they have to deal with. And that was one aspect that I really enjoyed of season 2, is it's showing what the people who are left have to deal with and how difficult it is. I myself, I have known people who have attempted suicide and succeeded. I've known people who have attempted suicide and failed. And it's definitely not an easy thing to talk about. It's a very difficult thing to talk about, especially for those who have attempted and failed. But it's not a topic that you should shy away from. It's not a topic that should just kind of be swept under the rug and like, oh, let's just avoid this completely. That's one of the reasons I really liked the show coming out. I know it was based on a book, but obviously it gets more kind of pop culture when you're adding actors that are going to be playing these roles, and then you're, you know, creating it into a series. It's kind of putting it on a broader spectrum. But the biggest issues I had with season 2 is it was too much. It got to the point where it seemed like the people who were writing season 2, directing season 2, leading season 2, it was, how can we piss people off? There was only a few things I really liked about season 2. I liked how in season 1, each episode was really wrapped around one person's take, and it was kind of their storyline that you were watching, and everything was from their perspective. The one thing I liked about season 2, and they did it a little bit looser than they did in season 1, which I wasn't a big fan of, but it was the testimony that was being given as Hannah's parents were suing the school for negligence. And it was seeing things from that person's point of view, the person who was giving the testimony. The other aspect I liked was the plot line with Sky, because when season 1 wrapped up, you could tell that Clay and Sky, they were going to kind of hook up, but they needed a way to not make season 2 about them. And I thought they did a really good job of starting with that, but then having some struggles come in, and then pretty much, I don't want to say pushing Sky to the side, but making it so that she wasn't a major plot point in season 2. She was there, she existed, but it wasn't an overlying thing that it was every single episode. It was something that you were going to hear about or have to deal with, or every decision was going to be about her, which wasn't the case. And then, but here are the major negatives of 13 Reasons Why season 2. The final episode was an absolute turd. That episode sucked. To go, again, I'm going to repeat what I said earlier. It honestly felt like what they were trying to do is they were trying to see how many times they could be like, you know what? Let's see how we can upset people. Let's not answer a question. Let's leave a cliffhanger. Let's do something to the where it's like, this makes absolutely no sense at this point. In the final episode, you've got Justin shooting heroin into his foot. You've got him having sex with Jessica in the locker room. You've got, I think it's Tyler. He's going to get ready to go shoot the school. But the way that the whole season wraps up is Clay's the one standing there holding a gun as Tony came up and, in his car and he ran away. It's just like, okay, it's too much. You went way too goddamn far with this thing when it could have easily just, done half of that crap. Like, there was no reason to get to all of that stuff. So what I recommend, like, if you liked season 1, I would say, yeah, you go ahead and watch season 2. It's just not coming with the highest of recommendations, and realize that the final episode absolutely blows. Like that, it was so stupid because you could tell the whole point is that they're trying to get it to where they want to basically have a season 3 that's going to be around some like school shooting or something like that. And it was way too much. Just, I hope season 3 is better. I'll leave it at that when it comes to 13 Reasons Why. Really quick, we did have a question in the chat about Golden Knights or Capitals, Warriors, Cavs. You've had the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals going on right now. When it comes to the Stanley Cup Finals, I don't care. I desperately hope the Golden Knights win the next 2 games so we get to a Game 7. Because there's almost nothing more exciting in sports than a Game 7 in hockey. It's arguably the most exciting thing. And that's one of the reasons why when it comes to hockey, I try to stay neutral. When it comes to teams, like when it comes to the NFL, I'm a Patriots fan. When it comes to baseball, I'm a Twins fan. When it comes to basketball, I'm a Blazers fan. And with the NHL, I don't have a team because when it comes to the Stanley Cup playoffs, I don't want to have a side. I just want to see good games. And the problem is when I eventually gain a team or I become really invested in the sport, I stress out during games because I either want somebody to win or I want somebody to lose. And for me, it kind of loses that sense of just fun of enjoying watching the game and being able to experience the game for what it is rather than having a rooting interest. That being said, I just hope that the Golden Knights win the next 2. And then when it comes to Game 7, all bets are off. I just want to see a great one. What would be ultimately fantastic is if we get to a Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final and that game goes to overtime. Like, how flippin' cool would that be? That's what I'm hoping for. Fingers crossed. When it comes to the NBA, I'm kind of rooting for the Cavs. There's no way I think that they're going to win. I get tired of the LeBron versus Jordan debate because I think that when people get wrapped up in, I see people on Facebook constantly coming up with these things where it was, like if LeBron does something, it's like, oh, well, Jordan wouldn't have done that. Or it's like, it's rather than just enjoying LeBron for what he is. Just enjoy it. You don't have to like LeBron. You don't have to think that he's greater than Jordan. I personally think Jordan's the greatest of all time, but I think what LeBron is doing is amazing. So I don't want to have to sit and compare the two. I don't want to be watching a Cavs game thinking, well, what would have Jordan done? That defeats the point. You're not enjoying what LeBron is doing. The guy went 51-8-8 in Game 1, and they lost because J.R. Smith forgot the goddamn score. And I personally think that when J.R. Smith got that rebound, he thought they were tied and he was dribbling out the clock. I've been listening to a lot of Dan Le Batard recently, and he brought up the point. He almost thinks that J.R. Smith was running a fast break. He forgot which hoop they were on, and he was going to try to score on the other basket until LeBron flagged him down. And if you watch the replay, you can kind of see that a little bit. But I still think that he legitimately forgot the score. He thought they were up. And one thing they did on Le Batard is they played some of the radio calls and the TV calls and stuff like that. And I want to say it was the ESPN radio call that J.R. Smith confused the announcers. They legitimately called it, and the Cleveland Cavaliers stunned the Golden State Warriors in Game 1. And then all of a sudden he realizes, oh, wait, I'm wrong. He goes, oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. It's tied at 107. Whoops. Like, he completely confused announcers because he was so confident that when he got that rebound, he was just going to dribble out the clock and the Cavaliers were going to win, which obviously, he was wrong. And that's going to go down as one of the biggest boneheaded moves in a championship game of all time. Like, it's up there with Leon Lett. At least the Cowboys won that game. I don't think the Cavaliers are going to win this series, but I would push for the Cavs when it comes to this NBA Finals. Also, really quick, backtracking to 13 Reasons Why, one of the things that was kind of fun to do while watching the series was when it got to the point where the girl that was Cyrus's sister that Tyler kind of went on the date with, they were making out, and all of a sudden he, in his pants. My fiance said, dude, she looks like she's 30. Guess what? She's 30. She's playing an 18-year-old and she's 30, which isn't completely unheard of. I just find it really comical when there's somebody who's really 25 years old or above playing a high schooler. And really quick, I was going to give a rundown on the ages of the people in 13 Reasons Why. Some of them are relatively close. The kid that plays Clay, he's 21 years old. So he's kind of in that age group. The girl that plays Hannah Baker, which if you watch season 2, when they have the warning at the beginning and she's got that thick accent where it's Hannah Baker. Can't not unhear that now. Like, it's embedded in my brain. Every time I saw her in the show, the first thing that popped into my head is her saying Hannah Baker with that accent because she's Australian. She's 22 years old. The kid that plays Tony, dude's 26, which you could kind of see. I mean, he looked older. The girl that plays Jessica, she's younger. She's 21. The guy that played Justin, he's 24. I liked how they brought him back. I liked the storyline that they were doing with that. But again, it honestly felt like all they were trying to do was like, how can we piss off the viewer here? What can we do that's going to upset them? And it got old and it got tiring. And that's how the season wraps up. So when the third season comes out, I'll probably check it out, but I'm not going to have the kind of desire to watch it as quickly as I have before, just because it's like the stuff's getting old. Like you're making it too much for us. Like, just pump the brakes, dude. The kid that plays Bryce Walker, that dude is 24. The kid that plays, who does he play? He's the one that shot himself in the head and failed. Alex. Alex, he's 24. The kid that plays, why the hell is it not on their damn page? Ross Fleming Butler, whoever he is. That dude's 28. Zach, that's the one I was thinking of. Yeah. So when you see the Asian kid, the one who's like, big and bulk, yeah, dude's 28 years old. Who do we have here? This one is, I'm not seeing who this person is playing. Oh, Tyler, the kid that played Tyler. He's 20, so he's right there within, within the age group. And so, yeah, I always find it interesting when you watch any of these kind of shows and they end up with people who are, crazy old. So what's the next topic we're going to get to here? Oh, since we were talking about sports, we were talking about not having a vested interest, we can move on to the World Cup. This past Premier League season, I had a bet with my fiance. I'm not even sure what we bet. It might have been dinner or something like that. And because if you have NBCSN, they show Premier League on the weekends. If you have Fox Sports, they have, I think it's Bundesliga. and Bundesliga and La Liga, I think. But those are kind of the three big soccer leagues, if you didn't know. And I don't have any vested interest when it comes to that soccer. When it comes to MLS, obviously my team's Portland Timbers. Um, but the whole bet was just pick a team, do your research, pick a team, and whoever wins, like, the other person owes them dinner or something like that. And when we first made the bet, I didn't want to pick like Manchester United or something because it felt unfair. Um, because I think it was pretty much known like Manchester United or Manchester City, they were going to be like the top two in the league. It ended up being Manchester City had just an insane season this year, and they ran away with it. But I originally started with Everton, and she picked Chelsea. And at the beginning of the season, I'm complaining. I'm like, ugh, like, Everton sucks. Why did I go with them? And she was like, look, go with your original pick then if you want. Go with Manchester United. Ended up being Manchester United. Performed better than Chelsea. But throughout the season, I still didn't have a very vested interest in any of these teams, but I might have found one. Mo Salah, who plays for Egypt, and he also plays for Liverpool of the Premier League. I just had the game on. It didn't matter if soccer is one of those games that I like to just put on the TV when I'm doing other things. If I'm, working from home or if I'm cleaning the house or whatever it may be, I'll pop that on the TV because it's good for the background. And I just remember watching, and it was a match with Liverpool. And this guy, I remember watching him play, and I was amazed at how good this guy was. And that was really the first time of all the Premier League that I watched this year where I was wowed by somebody. So I became a big Mo Salah fan here this past season. And he's going to be for Egypt in the World Cup. A few weeks ago, he did get hurt. He kind of got drugged down and busted up his shoulder, and they were concerned that he wasn't going to be able to play in the World Cup. But I think he did make the roster, and I think they're going to try to get him in, and that he will play in the World Cup this year. So we've kind of done the same thing that we did with the Premier League that we're doing with the World Cup. We each pick a team. Whoever's team performs better, loser buys dinner or something like that. And right out of the gate, she picked Germany. Son of a bitch. Like, that's the favorite. So I'm still toying with who I'm going to decide, which I need to decide quickly because it's kicking off in like a week. I think it's a week and a day is when the World Cup is going to kick off with that first match with Russia. And so I haven't quite decided yet. It's between, I think, France, Belgium, and England, I think, were the three that I was going with. I might go with Brazil. I'm not quite sure yet. But those are kind of the big three that I'm looking for to possibly as my pick for the World Cup. Although I am going to root for Egypt simply because Salah is, that's his country. That's where he's from. And then also I will be rooting for Mexico for any of those matches as well. Just, because the U.S. sucks and we didn't even make it to the World Cup. And that's a bitch. Mexico got a tough draw. They've got Germany, Sweden, and South Korea, which South Korea should be the easy victory. Sweden should be a really close match. And Germany, you just got to hope you don't get blown out. If they can end up with a draw in that first match, which is, by the way, it's Father's Day. That morning is when Mexico will face Germany in the World Cup. Just keep your fingers crossed that Germany doesn't just blow the doors off of them. But yeah, and then I also posted the story today on BuzzAdamsShow.com about the Mexican team celebrating with like 30 prostitutes after their victory last Saturday over Scotland. And it was a fantastic quote coming from somebody, one of the heads of the national team. It was from Guillermo Cantu, General Secretary of the Mexican Football Federation, when they found out that the team had been celebrating with prostitutes. This is a quote: "A free day is a free day, and those are the risks one runs with freedom." So he's basically saying, they're grown men, they're adults. Well, what are you going to do? Which was kind of refreshing to hear, because if that happened in the United States, people would lose their goddamn minds. It doesn't matter if whatever they were doing was legal or whatever, because obviously here in the States, unless it's being done in Nevada, then it's going to be illegal, which is a major problem. Think about, remember the Minnesota Vikings party boat that happened? That was a big scandal when that thing broke. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look that thing up. There was also a really good documentary that was done by Barstool Sports on the Minnesota Vikings party bus. So that's kind of the World Cup stuff. We got that thing kicking off in about 8 days. If you guys have any advice on who I should pick, by all means, again, I've got it whittled down to France, England, Belgium, and I think Brazil. I think those are the 4 teams that I might be going with. Because I got to pick one of the best. I mean, she picks Germany, for crying out loud, and Germany's the favorite to win the whole damn thing. So final topic of today's AfterBuzz: worst jobs ever. And I've had a ton of really crappy jobs. Basically, what happened with for me, it was when I was in high school, never really knew what I wanted to do. Wanted to play baseball when I went to college, but my shoulder got jacked up and I was never able to really kind of move on and play past high school. And so when I was graduating high school, I don't think I applied to a single college. I just had no desire to. I didn't know what I was going to do. So my dad told me, he's like, look, you can live under our roof. I have no problems with that. I'll pay for your stuff, but you have to go to school. You have to go to college. So when I first graduated high school, I moved on. I went to community college, taking just general courses, did fine. But I never really pushed myself. I never really found out what I could do because I was really good at certain things. Science and math were 2 things that I was really astute at. Like they just become very natural to me. And I never pushed that. And what happened was I ended up getting a job. It was the first job at a lumber yard. And I worked part-time. I went to school part-time. Eventually, I dropped out of school to work full-time. And then after that, I was kind of locked into the full-time work for a while. I worked for 2 different lumber companies. One of them I worked for 3 separate times. And then it wasn't until I was about, I think, 21 years old, that's when I figured out I want to go into radio. And I chose to do that. And then I went back to school, got my degree in radio, and then, it still took me a couple of years, or about a year and a half, year and a couple months to get my first paying radio gig. Before that, man, I worked at 2 different lumber yards. I was a temp for a while. If you ever want to be a miserable son of a bitch, go be a temp and just do the worst jobs on the planet. I remember one of them was it was like a car auto parts shop. They were doing inventory. So the whole job, it took the course of 2 days, and all you were doing was counting the inventory. That was it. And I remember this was over 9/11 too, because I think the second day was 9/11, and I just remember like they had like a waiting room, the TV was on, all this running 9/11 stuff constantly. Obviously, the news coverage. What were some of the other things I did as a temp? I worked in a plastics factory, and the hours, it was overnight 12-hour shifts 4 days a week. So the whole point was, was it 10-hour shifts? I think it was 10-hour shifts. So you're knocking out your 40 hours in 4 days, and then you can kind of do whatever you want with the next day. But it was overnight, and this is honest to God. All you did was, depending on which machine you were on, is it would dump out a bunch of frisbees or dump out a bunch of cups. You stacked them up into whatever the case would fit, 10 high, 12 high, 15 high. You stacked them up, you put them in a box. Stack them up, you put them in a box. 10 hours of this. You stack them up, you put them in a box. You stack them up, you put them in a box. That's when I realized I can't be bored at work because I want to fucking shoot myself. Like, that was so goddamn boring. I did that for, I think, a week, and they offered me, it was one of those ones where it's you start as a temp, and then you can, they will hire you full time if you want to stick around, because they have a tough time keeping people employed there because that job blows. Another one I did as a temp was working at a mattress factory. Oh my God. Or not a mattress factory, but a mattress store, where I was in the warehouse and you're hauling the mattresses around. And I think I did that for a couple of days, and it was the same thing. They offered a full-time job if I wanted it. I'm like, dude, this sucks. Like, I need to get the hell out of here. And this was right before I got into school for radio, because I'd already quit the one lumber yard I was at. This was the second lumber yard. The second time? Shit, I don't even remember. That's all. I drank a lot back then, so it's kind of a blur. But it was one of those where kind of a gap filler, where it got to the point where this is kind of what I was doing before I got back into school. And then when I started in school, I became a pizza delivery guy. And some of the things that I would do is that my friends would live in that area where we would deliver. So there was a liquor store right next door. And what I would do is I would walk in, I would buy some booze at the liquor store, and then I would just stash it in my car. And then when like 9 or 10 o'clock would roll around, my buddies would order a pizza, and then I would drop off the pizza and the booze to my friends. And then when my shift ended, I would go over to their house and we would drink the booze, eat the pizza, and then, you know, stay up ridiculously late. And these are also my friends that we did a lot of MMA stuff together. One of them was a jiu-jitsu guy, and one of them was a stand-up guy. And we would just move the coffee table out of the living room, and then we would stay up till like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, just beating the hell out of each other. And they would show me new stuff, and oh my god, like every morning after hanging out with these guys, I would wake up and I would be so goddamn sore because they always thought it was funny to push it just a little bit further. Like when I'd start to tap, they would give it that little extra wrench, or you know, if we're doing some stand up, you know, pop you in the face, or you know, pop you in the ribs or something like that. And that's how we would spend our weekend nights. That was a blast, kicking the pants. Before I wrap up this edition of the AfterBuzz, let me just make sure I've got everything covered here. 13 Reasons Why, season 2. Yes, it did suck. Just talked about the worst jobs. World Cup, man, I still don't know who I'm going to pick. She picked Germany, and I got to figure out who I'm going to try to combat Germany with. Now, that's going to be a bitch for her because that first game, I mean, not really going to be a bitch for her because she's going to be for, you know, Team Mexico the whole way. That's the one thing, is that she's, you know, a big Mexico fan, which is great because we get to watch soccer and stuff. God, but I don't know. It's between France, Belgium, England, and I think Brazil. And if you guys have any advice, you know, shoot me an email, brandon.coates at COATES at townsquaremedia.com. Also, we are still looking for a producer for our D&D games. If you can run a live stream and you can also add sound effects, basically just going to kind of multitasking. You need to be able to change the cameras because we're going to have multiple camera angles. And we will also have like a soundboard for you to play off. So when somebody says they're doing something, you just click that sound, you set the scene, do all these different things. And it's, you know, it takes up 3 hours each one. Tonight we're doing it from 5 to 8 out at Military Gamer Supply. I know before I had said if you want to, by all means, show up. I mean, you're more than welcome to show up at Military Gamer Supply while we're there, but realize that when we're doing the live stream, we are in a separate room. It's not like before when we were in like this back room. And the reason we have to do it where we are is because where we originally did it, the acoustics in that room are awful. That's why you couldn't hear anything. It was because our microphone sucked, and it was because that back room, it just created an echo chamber, and it was terrible. So we set it up in this separate room. So if you do show up, realize between 5 and 8 we're busy doing the actual live stream. And that's going to be 5 o'clock Mountain Time, 6 o'clock Central tonight. You can come right back to this YouTube channel where we'll be live streaming it. And I do know that Brandon from Military Gamer Supply, he is going to be doing giveaways tonight as well. So I'm not sure if Buzz is going to make another appearance. He made an appearance in the first episode, not Buzz his actual self, but Buzz the Ogre in Legends of Cascadia. And a quick recap of what happened last time. We had to help Buzz find his teeth. We found them, and there was this like ghostly figure that was stealing kids. And the way we wrapped it up is we were heading over to UTEP to do some research to find out if there's anything involving these ghosts that we can find out, where we're going to try to educate ourselves to figure out how we can you know, attack these ghosts and stuff that are going on there. And that's how we wrapped up the episode. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, have yourselves a fantastic Wednesday. We will see you bright and early tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. And next week after Buzz as well. Oh, and before I do wrap up, so tonight we got the D&D thing, and then also Friday, I believe at 10:30 on our YouTube channel, we'll be talking some mixed martial arts, because we do have I believe UFC 225 coming up on Saturday. So Isaac from Gorilla MMA is going to be joining me, and we'll be talking some mixed martial arts on Friday. And really quick, before we completely wrap this thing up, David says it would be funny if we got Buzz to dress up like an ogre. We might be able to do that, but another thing that we're working on, and this is how talented Brandon from Military Gamer Supply is and how cool this thing's going to be. So one thing you'll notice in tonight's stream is that since it's technically taking place here in El Paso for right now, we're going to have a Google map. on the screen with pins, so you can see where we're at when we're traveling and when we're moving around, to kind of give you a sense of where we're at in this world. Another thing that he's doing is he is creating the actual miniatures for the game. We've created, so Buzz is an ogre. There's my character who's a wizard, and we have 3 other characters that we've created for these quests. And each one, he's making actual figurines that we will be playing with. And I think that he might be producing more if anybody wants to purchase one. Like we're creating a whole world with all these other things. It's kind of it's based on D&D, but it's our own spin on Dungeons and Dragons. On that note, have yourselves a great day. And hopefully see you guys tonight at 5 o'clock Mountain Time for Dungeons & Dragons.
Legends of Cascadia.